Hi guys, my name is Jure Kok and today we're going to look at a motor control problem and a capacity problem in both the back squat and the snatch. The first athlete we're looking at has a motor control problem in her back squat. As you can see that when she goes into her ascent phase, she leans forward too much with her trunk, and this way she um, cannot maintain her upright position, and the bar moves out of her center of gravity. Moving like this in the back squat limits her for putting more weight on the bar, as she is not able to maintain the bar into her center of gravity. As we can see from both the side and the back, we can see that as soon as you go in the ascent phase, she has a hip dominant pattern where she first lifts up her butt and then extends her back. We then checked the mobility of the hips, and we used an exercise for this, as you can see in this video, where we don't see any restrictions in her hip movement. As we saw earlier in the video, there's also no restriction in ankle dorsiflexion, as she is easily maintaining that in her bottom position. The first intervention we did was a back squat assisted by bands. As the bands pull the bar down vertically to the ground, she gets forced into a more upright position. The feedback she gave me was that it was much harder already with an empty barbell in her quadriceps. When we compare the original back squat with the first intervention, we can already see a significant increase in the angle of her trunk. So to train this trunk position as specific as possible, I only elevated her heels temporarily and gave her the goblet squat exercise to get a squat more quad dominant. The next athlete we're going to look at has a capacity problem in her squat. Um, as we can see, when the athlete moves down, she stops at a certain point. She describes this as a point where she is blocked in her hips. She describes the limitations as a tight butt because she feels a lot of stretch on her hamstrings and glutes when she is in her bottom position. There was no difference in range of motion in the ankle in dorsiflexion, looking at the knee to wall test. To test the length of the adductors, we went to a prone uh, adductor stretch and checked if she could get into a squat position like this. And as you can see, she wasn't able to maintain her back straight and put her knees more further out because she felt this in her hips. This exercise was also the first intervention I gave her to stretch up the adductors. The next exercise I gave her was a goblet squat, where you can already see in the video that it was easier for her to maintain an upright position. So this means that not only the adductors are maybe tight, but also that it is still kind of a motor problem where with the weight in front, she has more balance and she can actually go a bit deeper. If we look at the catch in the squat, then we can see that she has a moment of imbalance when she gets back up. And the reason for this is that if we look at the bar pad, we can see that she pushes the bar out of her center of gravity. and therefore when the bar gets overhead, the bar has so much horizontal force that it pushes her back when she tries to catch it in her squat position. To fix this problem, we did a couple of exercises to just get back to some basic muscle snatches, trying to get the bar as close to the body as possible in a vertical line up above her head. You can see that the muscle snatch pattern is already much better, though we have to note that this is not a power snatch, so the lines are much more vertically than it should be in the original snatch. After this, we did some hang power squat snatches, and we did this to really focus on moving the bar from the hips as fast as possible in a vertical line above the head. The last intervention we did was a drop snatch, and the focus here was to divide her weight equally between her big toe and her heel as she dropped down, to try to get her balance better again. After this, we took a little break and we went back to the bar again, and we tried to do the snatch again. And as you can see in the bar pad of the second snatch, you can see that the bar is much more in her center of gravity, and the line is much more vertical as she goes up. And this way she can maintain her balance in the end much better. The last athlete we're going to look at has a capacity problem in the snatch. As we can see in the starting position, she keeps her shoulders above the bar, and what we want to see in a snatch is that you keep your shoulders more over the bar. The reason for this could be that she doesn't have enough mobility in her hips to go deeper and therefore lean more forward. We can see when we look at the back that when we look at the feet, that she creates more space with her left feet to maybe increase motions in her hip. And we can also see that on the right side she doesn't do that, and this results in caving in with her right knee as soon as she catches the bar overhead. We can see that the error in the starting position leads to a little curve in the bottom in the bar pattern, and therefore she has to move around her knees before she can get into her power position and there create a force to get overhead. As you can see, she is not able to place her butt on the ground in the pigeon stretch on both sides, which indicates that her hip mobility is lacking. A knee-to-wall test showed no significant differences between dorsal traction in left and right ankle. The first intervention we did was a sandbag squat, and we did this to increase her stability in the deep squat and to increase mobility of the adductors under load. I'm a really fan of using these methods because I get very good results with them. We also did the Turkish get up as an exercise to improve stability overhead. And lastly, we did a banded overhead squat to get comfortable in the deeper position of the squat, and because of the bands, she gets pulled like more vertically down than when the bar would be loose. The last thing I want to add as a discussion in this vlog is that I think it's interesting when we examine an athlete and look for the errors and restrictions they have in their exercise, that what I find is that when I coach my athletes, I get the best results by continue doing the same exercise, but varying in degrees, weight, or an exercise that is as close as possible to the original one. And I think this is because the neuromuscular system can adapt much better in patterns that are closer to the original one. And therefore letting go of these restrictions, or as we maybe can call it, tightness. For example, what we saw in athlete 2 is that she immediately got deeper in her squat when she had a counter weight in front of her, but we had done none of any stretches before we did the next exercise. So this could mean that the neuromuscular system lets go of these restrictions better in this other pattern, and therefore increasing range of motion immediately.